the Oscar voters are haters. I think that's what it is. You know, when you really think about it, because when you look at the list of directors throughout the history of filmmakers since the Oscars been around, when you look at that list, it's just ridiculous the amount of directors that haven't won. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, it's hard to even fathom when you think about the directors that haven't won, you know. And when it comes, when it boils down, I think about it, I think that the directors that are revolutionary, the directors that become, you know, mythic because of their greatness, you know, the directors that are influential, you know, the directors that do great movie after great movies and they become famous, those directors are going to have a harder time winning, you know, because I think the Oscars want to reward the directors that are, you know, maybe great directors but haven't got that notability yet, or, you know, or the directors that have no one really noticed them as much. And, you know, it's like they want to give, you know, those directors the Oscar, you know, because it's like, oh, those famous directors, they already get so much love and praise. Every time they make a movie, they, you know, get millions at the box office, or they may get all the critic love, or, you know, every interview, everyone talks about how great they movies are, and we're going to give them an Oscar. No, let's give the Oscar to this guy that made a great film that isn't as well known, you know. And when you look at it, you know, to me that's hating, because you're supposed to judge everything fairly. Like, it's supposed to be fair. It's not about who's the top director, who's just, you know, at the bottom of the totem pole director. It's about who did the best job directing. You know, that's what it's about. You know, and when I look back, man, like, look at this list. I'm gonna give you a list of directors that should have won at least one. It's just unbelievable that they didn't. I don't give a fuck. They should have won. You know, you look at, okay, from the OG directors, the directors that, at least that I know of, you know, because look, I can't go way back. I'm not from the 30s. I'm not from the 20s and 40s and stuff. But, you know, directors that have been so amazing that today, 2020, that I know of them and know their films and a fan of them, that goes to show how amazing they were and how influential they were, you know. And so, like, I look at Stanley Kubrick. He's never won an Oscar. I look at Alfred Hitchcock. He's never won an Oscar. I look at Akira Kurosawa. He's never won an Oscar. I look at Sidney Lumet. He's never won an Oscar. I look at Orson Welles. He's never won an Oscar. Like, if you look at these films, if you put up the films that all these different directors made, you would think there's no way they didn't win an Oscar. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Of course they won an Oscar. Nope, they didn't win an Oscar, you know. And then if you go, we could continue on going from generation to generation, you know, like the next generation, the new Hollywood generation, you know, Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, Sam Peckinpah, Terrence Malick, Peter Bogdanovich. None of these directors won an Oscar. Like, and that's crazy to me. Like, well, Martin Scorsese has an Oscar. I'm not gonna lie, but I put him on this fucking list because it took him 40 years to win one. 40 years. One of the most greatest filmmakers, in my opinion. At this point, he's the greatest filmmaker of all time. At that point, he was the great upcoming filmmaker that he was. It took him 40 years to win one. You know, so you talking Mean Streets, he didn't win one. Taxi Driver, he didn't win one. Raging Bull, he didn't win one. Goodfellas, he didn't win one. Like, it's so many good ones. The Color of Money, he didn't win one. Kings of Comedy, he didn't win one. Like, I could keep going on and on forever, and he didn't win one until The Departed. That's basically like a career achievement award, basically, even though The Departed was a masterpiece. But it's like, come on, bro, that's his first Oscar. I put him on the list. Then you got, like, you know, you could move on to the 90s era of the directors that's all-time great. You know, you got, of course, Quentin Tarantino. You got Spike Lee. You got Richard Linklater. You got Paul Thomas Anderson. You got David Fincher, Tim Burton, Wes Anderson. You know, like, come on, man, really? Like, these directors are like, they are Hollywood. They made Hollywood. If you take all these directors and delete them, Hollywood wouldn't be what they are. You know, like, it would be over with. I think movies would have been gone if it wasn't for these directors that I just named. And I could keep going if I want to. You know what I mean? Like Ridley Scott. It's just so many. Like, how do they not win a Oscar? But I think about it, it's like, look how famous and well known these directors are. That's why they haven't won an Oscar. You know what I mean? And we could keep going to like the 2000s era, like the ones that came out like in the new millennium and up. You know, of course it's been multiple decades, but you look at like Christopher Nolan. How the fuck have Christopher Nolan only even been nominated for one Best Director Oscar? And that's nomination. Come on, man. Edgar Wright, he hasn't won one. You know, Denis Villeneuve, he hasn't won one. You look at these directors, and I'm not saying, look, by any means am I saying every name that I name should win an Oscar. But the point that I'm trying to make is, it's a damn shame that none of these directors have won Oscars. How? You know, if you take away every film that every one of these directors done, I don't even know if films would be what they are. Like, I don't even know if I would be sitting right here talking about movies. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, when it comes down to it, you really got to think about it, man. Like, these directors have just been robbed. You know, it's just that plain and simple. Like, you look at certain things that happen in history, like to give you an example, like Dunkirk, right? Christopher Nolan's last movie. It was a far better movie than The Shape of Water, and I love The Shape of Water. I think The Shape of Water is a phenomenal movie, you know, and I love that director, you know. But The Shape of Water always had a better chance of winning than Dunkirk. You know, Dunkirk being a movie from the most popular filmmaker in the world, you know what I mean, and The Shape of Water is a great film by a great filmmaker that just doesn't have that notoriety, you know. And also, The Shape of Water is more of an Oscar bait film. It's about love. The Oscar bait films, love, peace, and happiness as films, they always had the highest chance. I mean, like, another example, you know, speaking of Spike Lee, you know, his first movie, well, at least the first one that I know of, is Do the Right Thing. That movie didn't even get nominated for an Oscar, right? Driving Miss Daisy won the fucking, you know, Best Picture award. Are you serious? Like, if anyone watched Driving Miss Daisy, and this is no diss to Driving Miss Daisy, it's an okay movie. It's an okay movie. You know what I mean? But Do the Right Thing is a masterful masterpiece, one of the most important movies ever. It didn't even get nominated. You know, you look at, back to Nolan, The Dark Knight, you know, it didn't even get nominated. And you look at movies like The Reader. Are you serious? If you ask most people what movie is The Reader, you know, people won't even know what that movie is. And I like The Reader, but you know, Kate Winslet was amazing in that, and she deserved the Oscar. I'm not taking nothing away from her, but come on now. And the list could go on and on. I could do this kind of shit forever, you know, with Goodfellas. You know, Goodfellas didn't get an Oscar nomination, and it's Goodfellas, one of the greatest movies of all time. And you know what fucking won? Dancing with Wolves won the Oscar. Now, it's crazy. Now, and look, this is no diss to every director that's won an Oscar. You know, I'm not saying, you know, just because you won an Oscar, that must mean you're not influential and you're not a great director and you're not famous. And there are exceptions. Spielberg has an Oscar. Francis Ford Coppola has an Oscar. You know, the Coen brothers have an Oscar. You know, James Cameron has an Oscar. So there are exceptions. You know, I'm not saying every, you know, but it's like, when I look at that list of directors that I name, it's just unfathomable how they don't have Oscars, you know. And a lot of times, if you look at, like, you know, the directors that have won Oscars, they're like, the directors that have won Oscars, they have like these Oscar bait ass films. You know what I mean? Like, they win, you know, like James Cameron won for Titanic. Like, of course Titanic would win. That's something, you know what I mean? The Shape of Water type shit. Of course a movie like that would win. I just look at the Oscars and I think, you know what, these people are haters. The more you are known for being one of the greatest filmmakers ever, and the more you are known for being popular and inspiring most generations that are coming after you, the harder it is for you to win an Oscar. You know, a director that's unknown, that's great, you know, they'd rather give him that award than a Martin Scorsese, you know, that's known as one of the greatest directors ever and a huge name and could sell box office movies and stuff. That's my theory. And, you know, and the reason why I call them haters, because I think, you know, directors vote for directors in the Oscar, you know, voter thing, cinematographers vote for cinematographers for the Oscar, for actors vote for actors. And that's why I feel like it's hating. People in your field hate the most, you know, and that's why I feel like the Oscars are always wrong. Like, not always, but a lot of the time they're wrong. A lot of the time they're wrong. They get the Oscar nominations right more often than not. You know, that's one thing I always give the Oscars credit for. When it comes to the Oscar nominations, they rarely get that shit wrong. You know, every year you're going to hear robbery because there's going to be some great performance that can't make it because it's only a certain amount of people you can nominate. But for the most part, to me, they get the Oscar nominations right. It's the wins they fuck up every time. And so that was just something I had on my mind. I just wanted to get that off my chest. Fuck the Oscars. No, I'm playing. Like, I love to watch the Oscars. But the Oscars really need to get that shit right, man. And judge everything fairly. You know, judge everything fairly. No matter how big you are, how small you are, you know, as a director. You know, judge it fairly. Sometimes the great influential directors are going to win. Sometimes they're not. You know, but there's no way a Stanley Kubrick should have lived his whole life without winning an Oscar. You know, then came and went as a director without an Oscar. Think about that. Thank you. Thanks everybody for watching the video. Please support the video if you like the video. Thank you. I'm out.